let's be clear to anybody that may not be mentioned in this list. Your feelings should be hurt. You should reach out to Glenn. You should comment. You should comment on this video your disdain for him, and you should really ask him why he would want to hurt you so bad.
It's the Life After High School podcast.
I went back and I looked at it. I asked a couple of people. I was like, "Hey, athletics or like self-improvement, learning, life after high school?" And then people were kind of like, "Oh, I like this, I like that." People were like, "Well, it's tricky if you do athletic. There's like it's very niche, it's very narrow." But I'm like, I feel I can get more of a broad range of people out of this and just accomplish, and I can ask more
and you can
overall
do one
questions.
in the future too. You could do a sports one in the future.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where it took. And then as I kind of developed, like I went back and watched the first episode of the show I ever had. Bro. Watch it.
That's painful
without, like, you're not going to watch more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I promise you. I'll bet you whatever you want. You're not going to make it past 5
minutes. So that's the
minutes.
test for everybody watching this. Go back, see how much of the episode you can watch, and then let us know how much you got through before you were just
Spoiler alert, the third question was, what's your favorite color?
Oh, no.
I know.
Oh, that's bad, yeah.
It was kind of like that's what I'm saying, the third question. Like, there was things
seriously,
before.
what is your favorite color?
Red. But I was like, it was one of those
That's why I
things
wore these shoes.
I appreciated that.
Yeah, okay, so he gets the podcast. So Glenn gets the podcast. Who's guest one? Once you're in your format, once you're in life after high school.
My friend Sadiq Azuz.
Sadiq Azuz.
Yeah.
I love that name.
He's a good guy.
Okay.
He was took business marketing, and I wanted to talk to him about that. But he's my friend called it very, very, like my friend Patty gave he said something that kind of struck me, and he's like, very like paralysis of analysis.
He's like that.
My friend Sadiq.
So Patty B. So the story of Patty B. That's his Instagram. The story of Patty B. says Sadiq, Sadiq has paralysis by analysis.
Yeah, and I've never heard about that. And I was like, what is it? Like, they're overthinking the question that there's a big pause. So even it's, what's your favorite color? I'm like, red, and on to the next thing.
Yeah.
It's like, what's your favorite color? And you're like,
yeah. Oh, yeah, that happens.
30 seconds go by, and you're like, you haven't... Yeah. No, I'm cutting every...
That's the complete opposite of flow state.
Quite literally the complete opposite. Yeah. And that's
okay. So that's your second interview. Now, who would you say was your funniest interview?
Oh my god. Funniest? It was a toss up between Patty and then I had Rob Ramsey on the podcast first.
Who's Rob Ramsey?
Have you ever seen Blue Mountain State?
That's a TV show, correct?
Yes.
And I haven't seen it, but I think I could kind of pick.
So he plays the big enforcer guy on the football team. Really big guy, curly hair. He's been in a couple other things. He's got a show called Pub Crawl now on Bell, and basically it was his way of saying, how do I drink and get paid for it? Well, that's his TV show. But it was really cool to have him on. So I'd watched a few episodes and I was like, hey man, and then actually, funny story about this, I was sitting down with a buddy of mine, we were watching Blue Mountain State, and he's like, and it was like a scene where Buddy's like really baked because he breaks his leg, but they need the big guy in the football game, and so they get him really stoned, and he just cannot stop laughing the whole next rest of 20 minutes of the show, and so he's burst out loud the whole time, and my buddy was like, dude, you should get him on. Nah, he probably wouldn't do it, and I'm like,
is he a Sudburian?
No.
So, how do you get him on? Just via Zoom?
Just reached out to him.
Is this a Zoom one, though? You do?
Yeah, that's the first one.
See, isn't that the beauty of Zoom?
I like it for that reason.
Is that you could reach out to anybody. Almost everybody has Zoom set up on their phones or their computer at this point. Yeah. So they're kind of been conditioned for it. So it's opened up this whole ability for you to now reach out to
nuts, man.
It's a game changer, right?
It's really
People's
cool.
mics are getting better. People's cameras are getting better. Yeah. People are learning that if you put the window in front of you instead of behind you, this situation let's not criticize this. Yeah, this
that's
situation.
why the curtains are on.
That it's going to be so much better, right?
Yeah.
And so people have gotten better at it, so it's opened up a lot for you.
And that was the funniest one with Rob, and just the dynamic. And then he started asking me questions as we go about traveling, and I was like, oh, this is nuts. So you get in that state of conversation, and that's where I hit it. When somebody's asking me questions and I'm asking them, we're going back and forth on the still topics that we have, that I have written down to cover.
Yeah.
I was like, great success.
Great
and
success.
So that was like good amount of views, like a solid like 45-minute average view duration on an hour and 12-minute episode.
How much does that matter to you when you look at your analytics? How does that affect how you feel about an episode?
View duration is something that I could have 600 views or 10,000 views, and if people only watch for 30 seconds, I'm pissed.
It guts you.
It pissed. But if somebody's like,
does it
40 views, and
does it change the way you felt about the episode, though? Like, if you really liked an episode, but people didn't connect with it for some reason?
Here's one for you.
Okay.
I'll not only ask for feedback from people, or I'll be like, what'd you think? Or people will give me feedback, but if somebody doesn't share it after, or
once they've been
it,
the interviewee,
that hurts.
Oh, yeah.
More than...
Because you're like...
Probably should. But then you don't feel proud about it. And it's like we sat there for an hour and you don't feel proud enough to tell just the people
that's what you're projecting. You're projecting that's what they're thinking.
That's what I feel. And that's, I haven't been
you're
told
projecting
otherwise.
that onto them, even though it could be for, a whole bunch of other reasons.
Yeah, and like to say there are people I've had on twice, knowing full well that they're not going to do it, and that could just be their style, and I respect them for it, that's fine. But that is something that originally... That's the answer to your question. That's something that guts me a little more than like okay views or whatever, because people like it. Like people like it. People hear about it. The more people I meet, or the more people who hear about it through. Yeah, it's a cycle, right? So
some people are just not good at sharing things. Yeah. It's interesting, right? It's just like people that aren't good at giving compliments. Yeah. Like there's an abyss filled with data that shows that compliments, obviously not in abundance, but properly given compliments increases the mood of people around you, makes them feel better, which therefore puts them in a state of they're going to be more happy with the interaction with you.
More comfortable,
right?
Everything.
There is mountains and mountains of data on this, and yet people still choose to not compliment people. And they're like, I don't compliment people. And I know somebody watching this right now is that person, and I'm mocking you. And I am mocking you. Because it's just such a... It's just like... You don't compliment people because you don't like the way it feels when you compliment somebody. Is so just about you. And I get it. If you go, I'm a selfish person and I only care about how I feel, that's fine. Be honest about that. Be honest about that with yourself. Yeah. But if you genuinely do care about how other human beings feel, compliments are great. Yeah. Now, if you're worried that your compliments is going to welcome inappropriate behavior, well, that's a different thing. Well, it depends on the compliment you give. It depends on what kind of boundaries you set immediately, because setting boundaries is very important. If you don't set those boundaries, and again, there's a lot of great information on that about setting boundaries and how it affects your self-confidence, but setting very clear boundaries so that if somebody crosses them, they cross them and you can kind of stop them.
Exactly.
Whereas if you don't set the boundaries, but you kind of loosely know them in your head, and when somebody crosses them, they don't know better, you don't say anything, but then you have resent, and then that begins that's bad. That's not healthy for you.
And there's three main ones that I think were. I was watching this video that did deconstructing the comments. It was how to make small talk, or how to make the conversation go to make the guests feel better. Anyways, it was there were three. I'm gonna do my best to remember them, but one was non-sexual or platonic physical compliment.
Yeah.
Because I think when people make physical compliments, they make it sexual and they leave it.
Yeah.
But you have to use compliments as a way to take it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or segue off of it.
Yeah.
Take it somewhere else, right? And so there's platonic physical compliment them on their work or their energy was one as well.
Yeah.
And then use that to kind of segue around, right? And I think the way the person is breaking down it, like, for example, then it's kind of like, oh, sweet, and like you can like go back with this now, you'll see like the last 7 or 8 episodes, I'd start with that. Like, oh, I'm a really big fan of your work.
Yeah.
And then I find.
If you guys notice, he didn't compliment anything about me at the beginning of this interview,
it's not
and
true
now I'm literally rewinding in my brain. I'm like, wait, this dude didn't even compliment me once yet.
I did with the mustache.
Oh, he did.
Right out the gate.
Yeah, but I don't think he actually liked the mustache. I didn't take it as a real compliment. I took it as one of those things like, I think he took a jab at me right away. Because this mustache has been...
That could just be
the reactions are like, people feel entitled to go out of their way to tell you how much they dislike the mustache.
I'm the opposite.
Which is fair.
Because I don't grow mine. I don't have mine. Like, this is as good as it's going to get.
That's as thick as it gets.
But
Tick. As it gets.
It's just going to greasy after, but you...
Yeah, I just wanted to change it up. I wanted my inner Magnum PI, my inner Burt Reynolds, right? It's just like, let's do this. Why not?
Unreal.
Get bored, you start to mess around. Now, if this isn't about me, though, this is about you, Glenn. Alright?
Cycle
Glenn
back,
Fittich.
Yeah. Alright.
Glenn Fittich, like a finely aged Scotch.
I like it.
I don't even know if that's a good Scotch or not. Okay, so... Let's go. You've been doing this, what, 2 years now?
Almost. Yeah.
2 years now. We talked about the funniest one, so let's go 1.5 years, okay?
Okay.
1.5 years, give me your high moment and give me your low moment with this, and you could choose what that means to you. Give me the high, give me the low.
So, high moment, actually let's start with low, because I can build off that. The low moment had to be, I was leaving a job and I felt not in the greatest space about it, and I feel like by leaving that job I was putting a lot of people down. It was something that I had done for a year. I was in like straight out of the gate in my field. Was very built for what I had studied, but it wasn't. Came on to work on a project, and that project stopped, and then I was doing a bunch of other things, and it kind of was like a mutual like, I'm going to leave now, this is it. And then it was kind of, but by doing that, I was making a lot of people disappointed in my decision who had supported me.
Yeah. But you were making the decision for
I was making the decision for me. And it was one of those things that, as I was doing it, I had a guest on, like, the week of, and then the week
So you're not in the best space mentally?
No, mentally not in the best space. I had a lot going on in my head, and it was just a very, very low moment, personally, and looking back on it, I don't think it affected the interaction, but I definitely think I could have gotten more out of it. But with what happened, I felt almost like, for lack of a better term, poser when I was doing the show. Or was like,
you just felt like a complete fake because you had to fake your way through it.
Exactly, and I didn't feel, and I felt like I was portraying that, and then I felt also like the guest was getting that energy. Back to what you said way back when we first started with mood being a big thing, and people could feel it.
Yeah.
I almost guarantee that both guests at the time could feel the energy that I was giving off, and it was very, very low moment in my life. And then it was I feel still doing the podcast as consistently as I could at the time made it tricky.
Okay, do you still talk to those guests?
Yeah.
If you know those people? Yeah. Did you ever tell them that afterwards?
No.
Why not?
No.
Why not?
I haven't really thought about it.
Interesting.
I haven't thought about it like that. Yeah. I could.
You should. That's a good, like, because you go, what was your experience like? Because you say, I guarantee they felt it.
Interesting.
You can't guarantee that. You can't guarantee shit.
You're like, I have an hour and a half, though.
I have a strong sense from my perspective. But you can't guarantee how somebody else's feels.
Fair.
It just doesn't work that way, right?
Crazy of a sense.
Yeah.
But you never know. You're right.
But you never know.
Right.
But you might be right. But we're horrible at reading people. If you ever want to read a really good book, it's Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers.
Yeah, Jen recommended that to me as well.
The whole premise is how bad humans are at reading each other in interactions. We're terrible at it. So you're better off to assume positive than to assume negative. Okay. Because we're so bad at it, you might as well assume positive from it.
Yeah.
And it's actually going to build out how you continue the interaction, how you feel about yourself, and how you feel about the interaction. You're like, I gotta write that shit down, son.
Can't remember I think it was George, I think, was right before, and then Ali. Yeah, I'll message them, because I'm talking them back and forth. They'd respond to my jokes that I put up. So.
Yeah, okay, do it. Yeah. Now, best. Hi, let's talk about your high.
I had where there were, what was it? I had like I had just had, I was kind of in a weird space where I was like, okay, I need to reach more people, or I have this huge master list of everybody ever that I want to talk to.
Ever?
On the show.
That's a lot.
Everybody.
Oh, wow.
People you'll know, people you won't, people you'll be like, well, really? And I'll be like, everybody, right?
Yeah.
You can imagine. So, excuse me, thinking that way, I had a bunch of people on the list, and I was like, how the hell do I take this from it being just my friends to strangers coming on the show? And I was at the sauna one time at the YMCA, and it was just me and Kyan.
Okay, right? Kyan.
Yeah.
World peace, Jesus.
Jesus, yeah. Anyways, we're in the sauna, and we're talking. He's telling me a bunch of stuff. Obviously, I'm talking to some stuff. And then I was like, hey man, you want to do my podcast? He's like, and then it just went from there. Yeah. And he linked me up with Chris Cacchiotti, with Connor, who guys were like local guys who were on my, like, there's local, there's provincial, nation, world.
Oh, you've got a nice category.
Break it down nicely, okay. And they were on my local. I was like, oh, these guys look up to in my local, like, level, of which I think would, like, make the show better. And, like, it'd be cool interactions to have.
Yeah.
And so he had known both of them, and he, like, texted them, and they both were like, yeah, right. He's like, dude, they're both coming on.
Yeah.
And he's like, just give me your number. Like, can I give them your number? I was like, yeah, I don't give a fuck. They both messaged me like a couple hours later throughout like the evening. And they're like, awesome. Yo, what's it about? What are you doing? I was like, yo, cool, let's do it. And then had them on. High
energy,
it just
individuals
kept going.
As well. Yeah.
Very high energy individuals, and it made me enjoy and help with those interactions. Yeah. And then making that, and then just reaching out to random people. That kind of made me comfortable with going from nothing with people who weren't friends of mine to start to now I'm comfortable talking to.
Now you're like,
meeting new people.
Good. This is fun. Okay.
Yeah. And then when it comes to like now, figure show like professional athletes, celebrities, like people of higher status than myself, people I admire and look up to, even who maybe don't fit that mold of like celebrity and stuff. It's still a matter of now it's a small talk conversation that brings into something else, and I'm more comfortable with that interaction.
Yeah. So, okay. Cool. So now you've talked about your low, you talked about your high, you talked about how you got into this. Yeah. What your thought process is there. Now let's talk about the audience for a second. In your mind, when you're imagining your audience watching an episode, what is the experience you want them to be having?
Nice question. Great. So, ideally, if I were to think about it, obviously, like 16 to 24, 26, whatever. Anybody that can relate that's older, amazing.
Oh, like you're telling me their age range, like 16 to 24, you want them to be in. Forget that. Who cares what age they are? So, tell me what they're experiencing.
Ideally, it's a focused self-reflection or a debrief of kind of what they can experience and take away from the guest itself. Depending on who the guest and how they may have found it and what age they're at, right? They can pick apart and they go, okay, this person is an actor, this person's like, they're an athlete and this is the troubles they face. I have somebody going through this issue. Debriefing it and reflecting on their path with doing a comparative analysis to the person I'm having on the show, and then taking away certain aspects that they might be able to use to help them achieve their next goals.
So you want your guests, and you like tell this, me tell me if I'm correct in this.
Okay.
So you want them to be in an experience like of learning, where they feel like they're learning. They're learning from the guest, and hopefully they're being entertained along the way here, because we love stories. We love hearing good stories. We're storytelling creatures. Yes. But you also want them to walk away with some action items. Ideally, like here's some action items that I could apply immediately so that I could improve my life.
Exactly. Whether that be now my way of delivering that may not be quite fully to what it could be to
But you're
make
growing
that
it.
out of it. But
And you're taking people
growing
along the
it.
way. People that are
Exactly.
watching it now,
Yeah.
that watch it in 2 years from now, they're going to be with you. They're going to see how much you've
Exactly,
grown.
yeah.
They're going to be rooting for you,
Yeah.
hopefully learning along the way. And then you're going to bring on all these new audience members
as it kind of
you
goes.
grow.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so your purpose here is to serve your audience.
Absolutely.
Why? Why do you care?
I think it goes back to, and you made me aware of it. I'm kind of gonna take a part of your answer where, in the Native community that you're working with, is she said, right? If I can remember, is something along the lines of, "You're here to grow. That's what we do."
Mm-hmm.
And I think growing together and just seeing how people in my life have affected me, I want to almost be that person for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know what I had, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for these interactions and others that we'll have along the way. And I think being that person that some people may not have to look up to, and creating people ask me, "Hey man, what about do you know this?" Or like, "Oh, if I can't help you with your career issue or with something that you're doing or a personal challenge you're facing or a goal, I know somebody who can. Let
Yeah.
me make that connection." Going back and like with your reasons as well, it's like it's a connection, but it's a growth thing. I'm trying to create that almost growing together through the connection between, whether that be the connection between me and my audience or the connection between that I create with my audience. And I bridge that gap to meeting you. Like, there are people who I've had on the show or I know and I'm friends with now who are solely because they saw your episode.
Yeah.
And they reached out to me after and then hit it off, move forward, and grown from there. So, it's cool.
Tell
I
me,
hope that answers your question.
It does. Tell me
kinda
what you experience when you help somebody. It's almost like this is a therapy session, which is fun.
Yeah,
but
it's
I
fun.
actually think
It's
that
cool.
this is important. I think this is important for
so
people
too.
that watch your show because I think people align with the core of people. And when you learn a little bit more about what drives somebody, I just really think that those are how you build real, long-lasting relationships, whether it's with the audience or people, more close, more intimate in your life. And so I want to know, as somebody that I consider you my friend at this point.
absolutely.
Can we
Absolutely.
raise that? All right.
Absolutely.
Oh, beautiful. I love it.
Absolutely.
Little knuckle.
Yeah.
Little touch. We do that. Little touch like that, right?
Little.
Sometimes we do the side right here. I like this. Little
Yeah.
touch like that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's more like an alpha thing to do.
is it- yeah.
Trying to block each
Yeah,
other.
you go. Well, you come in too aggressive sometimes. You're just
Yeah.
like, whoa.
And that
It's like when it's a
prevents that
little
whole-
touch. It's like that's how you know you're closer because it's a
Yeah.
little more intimate.
There's like
You're
an
just
unheard, unwritten.
you just
connection,
yeah, bro. Yeah, bro.
I guess your brother.
Yeah.
Safe.
Okay, tell me the feeling.
Yes.
See if you could describe this. I'm gonna ask this, then I'm gonna ask another question after
Okay.
this, more guest related.
I'm here.
Now, describe to me what it feels like for you when you help somebody. Try to bring yourself to a moment where you've done that, where you've connected two people together, or you just know one of your episodes just worked and you get some sort of like positive feedback. What are you experiencing in your body, in your mind?
First and foremost that comes to mind is gratitude.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that feeling of, it's a weird energy to describe and I'm trying to find the words, but it's very, very, it's fulfilling.
Uh-huh.
And there's people like, oh, when people say money make you happy and happy, I'm happy in those moments. When somebody gives me bad or good feedback even, which is weird, I'd say bad as well, but all feedback is good feedback for me, whether it's
But when
some
it's good,
technical-
it's different.
It is
because
very
you actually
different.
helped.
Yeah.
Right?
And-
Bad feedback is an indicator of going, I
Like,
either
they
need to
picked a
improve
problem.
this, or I need to improve this, or this person's a piece of shit.
Yeah, which is where it's like I'm grateful for that, but I'm not like maybe as happy.
That's a different
happiness. I
type of-
think is
yeah.
the
That's
yeah,
what the
just
thing
overall
of-
happy about
this
it.
feels good.
I'm like, oh, that's it.
That's
This is
good.
what happiness.
And so
is.
you're chasing that kind of
yeah,
high.
it's a very
right?
nice
And you go,
high to experience.
how do I
So-
scale that out to more people?
Yeah, and the first bit, I didn't really have that because it wasn't as it wouldn't be as I wasn't as skilled
Yeah.
as a podcast host. So being able to create those moments for people is very, very challenging in the beginning stage. Like I said, nobody gets anything about my buddy's favorite color being blue.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
who cares?
Okay,
So,
yeah, don't
stuff like
ask
that.
questions about colors. Okay, so if you're watching this and you're a teacher or you work anything that has to do with like younger people, I highly recommend you reach out to this guy to get him on a Zoom to do a presentation for them.
That'd be cool.
Because I think that you're going to
Really cool.
get a lot from that the more opportunities you have.
Thanks.
I've been lucky in that I've gotten the opportunity to go to
Yeah.
different like indigenous communities, different like high schools and
Yeah.
speak with younger people, teenagers, college, stuff like that. And the feeling I get, especially when somebody pulls me aside and goes like, especially there was usually a quiet person, and then at the end they pull you aside.
That's even better.
And you get
That's
to
so
do
cool.
a nice one-on-one. That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
Like I love when somebody goes, and I'll tell them, I prep them, I go, listen, if you don't feel comfortable on this, if you pull me aside after, we'll chat. And I always make sure I save time so like I'm not bookended, right? So that I save time for that specific
Smart.
type of interaction.
Very smart.
And you know, that's super fulfilling. So I
Yeah.
think that's something you'd enjoy. And so now maybe we'll motivate some people to
Yeah,
reach out to you
that'd
and
be cool.
ask you.
That'd be cool. I'm gonna like separate. Like, there's gonna be two. It's gonna be the flip script.
Yeah.
And then the business focused one that we did. at the
Yeah,
beginning.
absolutely.
That's
Okay,
the best way to get.
this is
the right
the
information
tough
out.
one for you. Okay,
What do you mean this
Okay,
one?
well, this because I'm going to get you to rank your episodes, and you have to be straight up.
Okay.
Your top 5 episodes. Now, remove me from the mix because I'm sure I was number 1. I'll just assume that, and then we can
Definitely
just move
up
that.
there.
We'll just
Yeah.
we'll just move. No. I was
He's like,
number
enough.
one. Number
I
one.
don't wanna know.
Okay, so
Very
top 5 episodes. We're gonna start at number 5.
Okay.
And we're going to work our way to number 1. Now, let's be clear to anybody that may not be mentioned in this list. Your feelings should be hurt. You should reach out to Glenn. You should comment. You should comment on this video your disdain for him, and you should really ask him why he would want to hurt you so bad. Still like the episode. Still comment. And just really understand that you're only not in this list because you weren't good enough. All right? Just know that. All right, number 5, who do we got?
Oh my god, dude. Okay, that's too funny. Number 5. I'm gonna have to say. Oh my god, there's so many good
He's
ones.
just buying time here.
Oh my God, there's
Look
so
at
many
poor
good
guy.
ones. Yeah.
Poor guy. Watch him sweat. Let's make him sweat.
Number 5. Probably my one of my main training partners at the gym, Corey.
Okay. What's Corey's last name? Do you know?
LaBrosse.
Okay, and he's one of your training partners.
We're both similar size, similar weight. He's in masters. I'm an adult because he's old. We're both blue belts. We both have like been at it for just shy of 4 years, or him maybe a couple months more, whatever.
Yeah.
We go head to head every time, and he came on the show, and it was the longest episode I had, and it felt like no time.
Just went by quick. Now, do you know what episode number that was?
I think number 7 or 8.
All right, 7 or 8. Go back, look for 7 or 8, and we want to hear your opinion. Number 4.
Number 4, I'd have to say the podcast with Rob Ramsey.
Rob Ramsey.
It's just, it was a cool guest. I looked up to him for a while. I'd been a fan of him. I've heard about his show, his new show, and I want to talk to him about that. I know he'd been in over 50 countries, and he's got a cool story. He's
traveled a lot.
Yeah.
Very funny. So also your funniest
cool to relate
episode
to.
in number 4, episode Rob Ramsey. Number 3.
Probably.
We're not here for probablys. We're
Kevin,
here for what is your
I'm just-
number?
Because I'm like, people are gonna be missed out. I'm like, oh, that one comes to mind. Kevin Slow Jam and James.
All right, who is that?
So he is a radio DJ in Los Angeles, California.
Yes.
And he's been at it for a while now. And that was another one Kyan introduced me to. And he has worked with he's worked with Snoop Dogg on his radio Cadillac music stuff, and then he's worked in like San Diego. He's worked in a bunch of places in the States. He came up in like the '90s hip hop scene.
Oh, that's amazing.
And he had a bunch of music that then none of these guys had, but he was
Yeah.
playing it on the radio. So their interactions would be they would have like a friendship where they all went to like with Kevin, and they'd play his music because he'd be able to give them music that they didn't have, because right back then it was cassettes, so I'm told. And I don't actually know this personally.
Yeah,
and so that was that.
CDs, yeah.
And it started off really good. He has the voice of a radio host.
Yeah,
He's like very thick, very like well spoken, like easy to listen to, and that was a lot of the feedback afterwards.
So that's number really 3. That's number 3. Let's go to number 2. We're working our way towards number 1. This is exciting, man. We've got Glen's playlist, his top 5 episodes. Number 2, who does it go to?
Number 2 has to go to Jose Vivar.
Jose Vivar.
Yeah.
So Jose Vivar, he's the guy that used to own 25/7.
Yeah.
He does his fitness stuff now.
Yep.
Okay, so tell me about that episode.
That episode was interesting because I had a couple people who knew him and were like, "Don't go see him," and then I had a couple, and then I had like 20 other people be like come. I only heard about him because people recommended I reach out to him and have him on the show. So when I did, they're like, "Oh my god, this is so crazy! It's cool." It's one of my most viewed episodes, and listening to it and like talking with him, he's showing me like his ankle bracelet and stuff when we were there.
Oh, because he was on house arrest.
Yeah.
Well, I had to ask his name because I feel like he's changed his name on social media.
It's been Alejandro or Alex.
I get so confused when people do that.
Drives me nuts.
I get so confused because I'm like, you're trying to keep all the names in your head because you're interacting with people on like, not directly, like for, you deal with people that are directly in your life, and then there's people that are kind of, you're trying to figure out everybody. Yeah. So when they change their name on social media, it just melts my brain where I'm like, I don't even know what anybody's name is anymore. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that was your number 2 episode. Thank you for sharing. Now, before we get into the number
honorable
1 episode,
mentions,
we got to do honorable mentions.
I was like, that's a great idea.
Yeah, we're going to do 2 honorable mentions. Give me 2 honorable mentions.
2 honorable mentions?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to give a shout out to my first one, but that's not really much of an honorable mention for myself, but it was just kind of the one that broke glass. But
you said it. You mentioned it. You don't get to
that's
kind of mention it.
Episode 1 is very, very. I learned a lot from it. I have a lot to take away.
What was your friend's name?
Sadiq Azuz, and it's
Sadiq Azuz.
It's episode number 1. It's my still to this day my most. It's got over 100 downloads. Like it's like my number 1 downloaded.
Yeah,
and it's awesome.
That's
hilarious.
An important thing to look for. What he just mentioned is downloads. Downloads are really important to YouTube. Okay, so number 2 honorable mention.
Number 2 honorable mention, probably what's that one? Because I want to say this one. I'd say the one with Garth Mullins.
Garth Mullins. Who is that?
Look him up. You'll love it. So
really?
And
this is exciting.
The only reason this isn't up there in terms on my top 5 list is because of how shitty of a tech issue it was at the beginning.
Oh no!
So it took away from the whole tone of the conversation.
Okay, so what episode is that?
I think it's like episode 55 or something.
Keep in mind, he had no idea I was going to throw this top 5 list on him. The top 5 list is something that he's really kind of coming up with right now.
Yeah, pretty much. Subject
to change. But for now, this is his top 5 list, and this is his number 1 pick for his greatest episode in a year and a half that Glen has been doing, Life After High School.
I could say this one right now, but so it has to go to the second one I did in 2021. Episode number...
Let's make sure we get that episode number right so people can go back and watch it.
Oh, Patty's a good one too. Episode number 52, out on January 24th this year. It's my most viewed podcast on YouTube. It's called How Does Joe Use Spectacles to Travel the World? Joe's been a guy who I've admired and looked up to since I met Joe in Quito, Ecuador.
Okay.
Yeah. So I met him on the equator,
Wow.
And I did a 2-week service trip with Me to We through my school, right? And it was kind of like an 8-month process to set up to go on the trip. And we met him and Lily, our facilitators, and Joe's from North Carolina, and we were like very, very like cool. We're like, yo, what's up, man? Like, yo, he's a good guy. And then there were 10 women on the trip. There were 10 people on the trip, and then 2 facilitators. Me and Joe were the only men out of the 12 of us who always, for the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we like formed our bond, and we would ask people questions. He's very, very smart about business and engineering, like his technology and the way he looks at technology. And he's lived in Latin America, and he's got experiences learning like in Colombia, learning Spanish, and he's traveled all these cool places in Latin America. And he was somebody that when I would ask the question of the day, he always had probably one of my favorite answers.
Okay. Yeah.
And I never had a moment where I didn't like Joe or I didn't respect the hell out of him. And just somebody who had his story, I knew when I had this podcast, he was one of the first people I thought that I should have on, but I wanted to have him on in the right capacity.
Yeah, when you were ready for it.
Yeah, and I think at the beginning of the year, after I had Rob on, I was riding the high of everyone be like, what the fuck, oh my god, you're the guy. And then I was like, all right, this is good, I'm going to ask Joe. I asked Joe, I thought it would take him longer. He reached out, I was like, my dude, this is amazing. Yeah. We talked for like an hour doing our face-to-face, and he's like, don't really care what you ask, I'm excited. Like, we talked about the Me to We thing, because he used to work for them. Yeah. Talked about their issues, talked about like a lot of more grand political issues, and I think that was one of my episodes that we went more in depth into things that I don't usually cover. Okay. Just because of how, like, he's young, like he's maybe like 27 or 28, so the life after high school isn't as long of an answer, so we were able to go dive deep into the things that he did say, and still keep the time relatively like good for audience retention. So
that's your number one with Joe. We love Joe. Yeah. Okay, so make sure you comment in the section below what your top 5 episodes are, or what your favorite episode is. Yeah. I think that would be great.
It's like 500 plus views, and the average view duration for it is some like 38 minutes.
That's amazing.
Which is insane to me.
That's beautiful.
For what I'm doing.
Thanks for answering my question.
So, yeah, thanks for
answering my question.
Dude, thanks for answering my question.
I'm glad you let us reverse this. Man, that was really fun.
Yeah. I agree, brother.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you.
Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you do. I think you're very, very, very unassuming. What I mean by that is you're very, very, very cerebral, but your energy is different than that. And I think when it meshes together, it's so cool to see what you come up with. And I think when I hear the word creative, you're the first person I think of.
Oh, thank you. That's a beautiful compliment. I love what you did there. I was just like, oh, give it all to me.
Amazing, brother.
Yeah, that was wicked. Thank you so much.
Awesome, no problem.
You're the man.
You're the man.
Touch.
All right.
Touch.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. Descriptions below and stuff. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys later. And the battery light's flashing.